Hi everybody, this is the website boy from the websiteboy.com, and we are going to be doing a couple things in this tutorial. We're going to be talking about Boolean, we're going to be talking about null, and we are going to be talking about type, juggling, and casting. All right, so we're going to talk about three things in this video. I just want to cover it. um, I don't want to confuse you, so I'm going to go a little slow on this one here. I'm going to grab this arrays function.php file and I'm going to save as. All right, so if you are following me with the tutorials, you know we are using a local server, local host. If you don't know how to use that, go back to the beginning and I'll learn how to do that. All right, so let's do a save as on this. And I don't really know what we're going to be calling this, but let's call it mits. Actually, let's call it by the names that we are going to be covering. So bool, null, and type. All right, so that's what we're going to be calling this function, this file. And let's just say, see if I remember null. Actually, no, I got such a bad memory this week, I don't know. And type, let's see if I got it right. Of course I did not have it right here. Bool is actually the opposite. Bool, and then null, and then type. There we go. And let's erase this. Let's close this PHP tag in there. Let's talk about bool for a minute, and let me show you what a boolean is. All right, so a boolean is actually just a value called true or false, and we use it to, they're very useful when we are performing tests, just like we did an example in array on the last tutorial about arrays. We used the in array function to actually let us know if a value was inside the array, and that produced a boolean, either true or false, and gave us a 1 for the true and gave us a 0 for the false, even though we didn't see it. So let's just make a couple variables here. Let's do test1. Let's make this equal to true, and this is how we do a boolean if we are doing it ourselves, of course. Let's do a test2, and let's do false in this one. And you know, you're gonna see people actually typing it like this in lowercase, or they're gonna be typing it in uppercase. Either way is fine. Use whatever you like. I don't really care how I type it, as long as it gives me the results, right? So for example, so if I want to, if let me just give you an example of a boolean. So let's say I make a function here. um, let's just say echo is int. Oh, my stomach was growling there, sorry if you heard that on the tutorial there. So let's say if we want to test if this is uh, an integer. Actually, let's just grab one of these. Let's make it test3, and let's make this an integer, test3. And if I wanted to test if test3 is an integer, this is supposed to give me a 1, and if it is, and this is what it's doing, right? You see that is making the, it's showing us that it is boolean, it is an integer by displaying number 1, which means is true. What PHP is doing is converting this true into a string 1. All right, and we're going to be talking about that later in type, juggling, and casting. All right, so anyways, so that's what a boolean is. It's very useful because you can set things to true or false depending on the condition that you're using. All right, so that's what a boolean is. All right, and we are going to be using that later on in other functions. Another thing I wanted to show you is null. All right, so let's make a variable here, and I'm just naming this variable. You can name it whatever you want. And null is just a lack of any value. Null will set this variable with no value at all. It would not be empty, because empty, it's empty. It's let me just, I think if I give you a graphical, you can see that what I mean variable, what I mean with it. So let's say variable 1 and variable 2. Let's set variable 2 to an empty string. This, even though this is empty, is still Not this, even though this is nothing here, it's still a string because you have the double quotes in there. All right, and we can. So now let's echo this, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. So let's just um, echo a space in here, a BR tag, just to separate this a little bit. So let's say I want to echo number one, right? Want to echo number one. Let's see what that was that going to give me, and variable number two. Let's see what that was that going to give me too. Let's just separate it with another echo here, BR tag, and let's refresh. All right. As you can see here, it did not give me any value. It just gave me a one, right? Because what it's doing right now is variable one is not displaying it at all. It's nothing there. And variable two is nothing there either. All right. So in order for us to test this, we got to use a function. And this function is very simple to use. All you got to do is echo is null. All right, so this function, what is this function is going to do is test if this is null or not null. All right, and it's gonna, if it is null, it's gonna give us true, and if it's not, it's gonna give us a false, which is a zero. All right, so we can do the same thing for variable two right here, and we can separate it. I just wanted to show you that if you do it like this, it was not gonna give you anything because this is nothing here and there is nothing there. If I refresh, you get another one here because this variable is null. There is nothing here. All right, even though when I put this word null, it's telling the computer, I don't want you to assign this variable to anything, not even a string, not even an empty space, nothing, just nothing, like it doesn't exist. All right, so that's what it's doing right now. All right, so that's null. All right, and if you, let's just do it like this too. Let me just make another variable here. Variable 3. Actually, I don't even have to make it. Let's just, I want to display here. And I'm going to say, I want to display variable 3. All right. And below this, all right, below this, I don't want to confuse you, but below this, what I'm doing is I'm testing if variable 3 is null. All right. And it doesn't even exist, but look at this. So I refresh and I get a notice here telling me that, you know, it doesn't exist. But then I also get a response back telling me that it is null. Basically, it does not exist, but it is null because it's not there. So null means that nothing is there at all. All right, so keep that in mind. Let me just take that off because I don't want to get all this. All right, so let me just make some space here just to show you the next one. And the next, what we're going to be talking about next is type juggling and type casting. Type juggling is what you saw here with the int here. PHP is grabbing this a boolean value and making it a string number one. It's converting it. All right, it's converting the type, and that's when PHP does it. It's called type juggling. All right, and the types that we're talking about are integers and floats, and those are types. All right, so when PHP converts a integer or a float to something else, to a string, for example, is doing type juggling. All right, now we can also do it ourselves. We can convert strings into integers, and when we do it ourselves, it's called type casting. All right, let me just show you an example of what it is. So basically, these are types. Let me just show you. These are types, and a string is a type. Let me just do it right here. Types, string is one type, float is another type. I just want to write it here so you can have a kind of a reference on it. Array is a type, boolean is a type. All right, those are types. All right, so let's just show you how PHP does the type juggling. All right, so let's say we have a variable here called number, and it's equal to 10, right? So if I go ahead and echo this number here, let's use a function called get type. This function is going to give me the type that this variable holds, right? The value of it. So let's get the type of number that is, and if I refresh, it's telling me it's an integer, and it's right, it is an integer, right? But we can also go ahead and set the type to something else, right? So we can go ahead and do this. Before we even get that, we can set the type. We can use another function called set type, and we can set the type to number, and the type that we are going to be using is called a string, but let's use some quotations in there because it is an integer now. And if I refresh, it gives me an error, of course. We're not doing it right. Let's do a string here. Let's see if I just write, if I'm writing it wrong. I'm writing it right. I don't know why it's messing around with me. All right, so string right here. I wasn't closing it, and I refresh. Now I converted that integer into a string by using the set type function. All right, and this is called type casting. We're doing it ourselves. Now if I want to show you type juggling real quick, which when PHP does it, it's really crazy when PHP does it. Right now is an integer, right? But look what happens if, let's say for example, I do some concatenation with this variable. Let's say I have something called I have, and then I do some concatenation. I always have a problem saying that word with number. So I have 10 what? I don't know, 10 computers, which I don't, by the way. I'm just saying it. And so I'm just gonna comment this out, and of course nothing's gonna come here. If I do echo on it, this sentence is gonna say I have 10 computers, right? Let's just make a space here on this computer, refresh. I have 10 computers. If I check the type in here, right, look what happens. Let's just take this off. It's telling me is an integer. All right, why is it telling me it's an integer? It's supposed to actually convert it. It's actually making me look bad right now, right? No, actually it is an integer. It's saying number is an integer because I have number as an integer, right? Let's check sentence. I'm sorry guys. Sentence right here. Refresh. It's telling me the sentence is a string. So what PHP is doing right now is actually grabbing this number here and converting it to a string. Reason is because we are concatenating, and usually when you concatenate, you're concatenating with the strings. So it takes that string is stronger than an integer, right? So it's saying right now, I'm gonna convert this whole thing into a string and make it easier for you. So it's grabbing this integer and converting it into a string. So it's doing some type juggling. That's what that means, all right? So we can also do some type juggling. Let me just go ahead right now. If I get the type of this is saying it is an integer, right? If I comment this out, let's do it the C programming language way, and we can do this by saying parenthesis, and then we say string, and then we say number. Let's convert this into a string and refresh, and as you can see, we, instead of using set type, remember this, doing this whole thing with number and using the quotations, instead of doing this, we use the string, the parentheses, and the name string before the variable, and it did the same thing as set type. We just use it in a different way. This is the way that you write it in the C programming language, right? So we do some typecasting in the C way. All right, so what we cover, the Boolean, what Boolean is, true and false. We cover what null is, All right, null right here. What null is, which is a lack of any value in a variable or anything, any array or whatever you are doing in a function or your code. And we also covered type juggling and typecasting. All right, I hope this video was able to help you out understand this concept. And if you like the video, favorite, like it, comment on it, let me know. Give me some feedback. And I want to thank you for being here and learning with me with the website boy. And again, if you need some help, my website is always open for you and for anybody that needs help. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.